Jeff. Dalvin here speaking. As a respected voice in the African American community, how would you describe the current relationship or camaraderie between heterosexual or homosexual men?
Every brother in the queer community isn't the same. Like, there's some brothers in the queer community who are assholes. Yeah. And I don't like them because they're assholes, not because they're queer. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's like I have, as long as I can remember being an adult, have had anything from business relationships to cordial relationships to friendships with brothers who were across the spectrum of sexual identity. And I think, the older I've gotten, the more that there's been complexity in that community. But, and I think the older that I've gotten, I have been, I think, more intentional about challenging some of the traditional notions of what I've been taught. I'm very careful not to use the word ally, because I think ally is a term that has to be given to you. Mm-hmm. I don't think you can claim to be one. Mm-hmm. But the reality for me is I create relationships based on who people are as human beings. I think that obviously there are challenges within the Black community in particular, mm-hmm. Because often we are developing human relationships based on religious dogma. Yeah. And we haven't found a way to have a level of truth in our faith without dehumanizing people often. And I think that's the biggest problem that I see in the discussion that I think that you're bringing up.
Before you gave us a phone call, what we were kind of dialoguing about was in regards to, in particular, the Black community with the Black queer community as well as the Black straight community, male community is what we're talking about. And it seems to be where, with the progression that's happening in the LGBTQ community in regards to the level of acceptance, that's happening, the identity things that are happening for us and things of that nature. It still seems to me, as a gay male, where on the spectrum of relationship between just a gay male and a straight male, it still kind of seems to be strained in a bit. And I wanted to hear your perspective on that, because you created a space on Man Cave where you allowed men to have men conversations. And so I kind of wanted to know from your perspective, do you still see that strain happening?
Well, again, man, I think that it's really easy and dangerous to overgeneralize. Mm-hmm. I think depending on where in the country you live, it makes it easier for certain relationships to exist. Mm-hmm. So the Black gay male community in Washington, D.C. and Atlanta is a hell of a lot different than in Cleveland. Yeah. And so because there is a strong community, because there are greater levels of resources, because there are people that are pushing in multiple spaces to have conversations, you have an ecosystem that gives brothers permission to have conversations that they're not going to have other places. And as a result of the permission to have those conversations, you have the ability to create higher levels of understanding. And in creating higher levels of understanding, that's where relationship starts. So again, I think it's dangerous for us to be overly general. I think that there are places in our community that don't even have the conversation, mm-hmm. and because there's no conversation, there's not going to be relationship. Yeah. Now, and in the broader sense, right? I mean, when you're talking about straight Black males and Black gay males. I think that it's difficult because hell, it's not like all straight brothers is getting along.
That's true.
Indeed true.
And it's not as if we're having the right kind of conversation in general. I mean, that was really the point of Man Cave. Mm-hmm. And if we're going to be fully transparent, like we didn't even get to it because networks are often so damn scared. Yeah. Of having the conversation either. So it's not like BET is this bastion of courageousness as it relates to conversations about the complexity of masculinity. Mm-hmm. So there was stuff that we wanted to do there that we weren't able to do because the network wasn't courageous enough to do so.
Gotcha. And just a quick follow up to that. Now, Jeff, I don't remember what interview and what platform you were on when you spoke to this, but I do remember that when you were talking about the conception of Man Cave, that you were actually very intentional of wanting to include a gay male on that cast because you wanted that to be represented. Could you talk about why that was so very important to you just personally? Because when
the goal of Man Cave was and is, because we're going to be relaunching in a different platform under a different name, was to elevate the complexity of Black manhood and manhood in general. And so there were a bunch of brilliant brothers from the queer community who were part of the casting session. A lot of folks know my brother Ben, who writes for Insecure.
Yep.
And Ben was actually one of my favorite discussions of the casting session. Was there were 4 brothers and myself. Ben was one of them. None of the other 3 brothers knew that Ben was gay. And so I intentionally asked the question, tell me a story about losing your virginity.
Oh, wow.
And I'm waiting for it. And Ben is like, well, when I lost my virginity to a woman, and then when I lost virginity to a man, And it was so dope because without missing a beat, the 3 other brothers literally lean in, and I'm no longer the moderator, and they're asking Ben questions from this place of really earnest, inquisitive, but human interest. And it was so dope because I don't remember the last time I've seen a conversation like that.
Yeah.
And I damn sure haven't seen one on TV.
No.
So that was like, I was like, this is the shit that we're trying to do.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that conversation ever would have aired if we did it.
If anybody can do it, you can do it, Jeff. If anybody can do it, you can.
The issue is not me. The issue is not me. The issue is that listen, we don't even want to have serious social commentary that pisses us off enough to think.
Yeah.
And so, like, even when I think about the last Dave Chappelle show,
yeah,
I love
it. It was just like, cancel that nigga because he's coming hard against the trans community. And it's like, yo, wait a minute. This is actually a opportunity to take that and use it as a mechanism of conversation. But no, we're so damn sensitive that it just becomes cancel that dude. It's not even an issue of whether you agree with him or not. Comedy and art and content are supposed to piss us off, and supposed to make us think, and supposed to take us to a place of debate. And so, you know, I don't want to. I'm gonna rewind myself from this soapbox, but it just pisses me off that we talk about not having these conversations, and then when stuff happens that can help the conversation happen,
I completely agree.
We get so in our feelings that we just ready to cancel cat instead of use it as the opportunity that it was meant for.
And Jeff, piggybacking off of that, I heard you mention earlier, you know, in terms of being cordial and having friendships, maintaining friendships. I was curious to know, hypothetically, if your best friend came out to you as gay, and even went as far as to have a certain degree of attraction for you, how do you believe that you would respond to that? Do you believe that there would be some?
I've been hit on. By my gay friends before. I mean, you know, like I
does it cause you to experience any cognitive dissonance of any sort?
No, because I mean, so here's one thing, right? So let's, because I had a conversation. I don't even know how this came up. In the last 48 hours, one of my biggest concerns about having conversations about gender identity with my Black friends is that there are still so many Black people that think that homosexuality is about sex.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so I at least in my adult life have not believed that, because I've seen same gender loving couples love each other in ways that I haven't seen heterosexual couples love each other.
Very true.
And so it's like, shit, can we get out of this, like, we're so busy trying to talk about being woke, and then we sleep when it comes to embracing other people's narratives about stuff.
I'm happy you said that.
And so you don't even have to understand it to not dehumanize somebody.
Right.
Like, I've had serious issues coming to grips with, you know, from my own faith walk, and what I've been taught. So I've had challenges coming to grips with it.
Yeah.
But I don't dehumanize my brothers and my sisters in the process of my coming to grip with it. So I take it a step further. Yes, I've been hit on, but it's never been disrespectful.
Okay.
So if it's disrespectful, then I have a problem with it. I frankly, there's been times when I've been flattered. I'm not interested. I don't want it.
When you say disrespect, do you mean as far as persistence, or more so in the verb?
There
the
are
verbal
varying
approach?
levels of disrespect. Like, you can be disrespectful in how you approach somebody. It can be unnecessarily aggressive. You can go beyond from a persistent standpoint. You can put your hands on somebody. I mean, there's all kind of ways to be disrespectful.
Right.
And so I also think that whether we're talking about advances of any kind, I mean, hell, the whole Me Too piece is about inappropriate advances. So I just think that I think men in particular, and I think that means men in general, because there are homosexual men who embrace toxic masculinity.
Yeah, that's very true.
And so we all have to navigate, regardless of where we are, what that shit means and how that's processed. But you know, I've had to navigate, what would I do? I've got 4 sons, 2 of whom are teenagers. I've got to navigate, what would I do? I have a daughter. What would I do? How would I think? How would I feel if one of them came home and told me that either they were processing their sexuality because they were having some, they weren't sure. But listen, I was a youth pastor in a church in Baltimore where 50% of the teenage girls that I had, and I'm talking about, you know, upwards of 100 teenage girls, had said that they had sexual experiences with another teenage girl.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, in those moments, it was, all right, let's take a step back and deal with what this is, as opposed to immediately pulling out the Bible.
Right. So Jeff, I'm curious to know, walk me through how would you, like, what were your pre-woke / pre-educated thoughts on gay men before, you know?
I mean, I think that so for me, I have always had to navigate my faith beliefs. And so dogmatically, there is a reality of what the Bible is written to say.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
And so there's no way around that, right? And so there's a couple of things that I think we have to deal with. One is, like, I always tell some of my Christian friends, you beating up people that ain't never told you they was Christian, first of all. So there's that.
Very true.
Right? There's that. There's also, you will talk about how Machiavellian the Bible is in its use of oppressing people, and then quote that like it's infallible. So there's that. Then 3 is, at what point, even if you believe the Bible to the letter of the law, at what point does that ever give you the right to take away somebody's humanity? Even within the context of your dogma, God is the one that's supposed to judge, not you.
Right.
Very true. So listen.
So there's all of that, right? And then for me, it was then the process of walking through how I, at the earliest stage in my life, remembered liking women.
Gotcha.
And I had to say to some of my boys, I'm like, I never woke up and was like, yo, I think I'm going to decide today. I'm going to like women. I've been thinking about it a lot, and damn it, I'm going with women. I remember being 6 years old and the babysitter coming, and I wanted her to pick me up, not because I felt like I was a baby, because I liked how her breast felt against me, because I was attracted to her at 6 years old. There was something innate, and there was something natural, and there was something that I didn't have to think about it. It was there. And so my challenge with a lot of my heterosexual brothers in particular is, why do you think your process of identity was innate and organic, but your homosexual brothers are making a choice to do this, especially still in a day and an age where if that was a choice, it's a choice of often being ostracized from the very people who love you. I just think that's such a short-sighted way to think about it.
Yeah.
So
Jeff,
all of those things have been part of the process for me of assessing how I want to interact with my brothers and my sisters, for that matter, in the queer community.
Gotcha. So listen, I know you have to go, but you did mention to us in regards to the show, the content coming back in a different format. Is there anything that you can share with us? Again, coming from a openly gay male, I'm really hoping that I can see some representation of myself on that show. But other than that, it was a great show, period. Is there anything you can share with us about that new opportunity?
I cannot.
Come on now.
No, I literally can't.
Gotcha.
We are on the precipice of a new executive director.
Gotcha.
Just know that I am diving headfirst into content around men, and so there's going to be a number of things I'll probably be talking about launching in 2020.
Awesome.
But listen, brothers, I appreciate you inviting me to have
Yes,
this
sir.
conversation.
Thank you so much for
Appreciate
joining
you
us.
coming on, Jeff.
Yeah, thanks for your time, man.
So
was an
appreciate
honor.
y'all, brothers.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You have
All
a good
right.
one.